There have been certain fights which have damaged certain fighters' careers, where they didn't seem like the same fighters they used to be. So here is 5 most career-damaging fights in the UFC. Number 5. Back in 2010, Gray Maynard had put together an 8-fight winning streak and was the clear number 1 contender against then UFC lightweight champion Frankie Edgar. They were booked to face each other at UFC 125, where after a crazy 5-round war, the fight was ruled a draw. With this decision, the UFC booked both fighters to face each other again at UFC 136, where in the fight, both fighters took enormous amounts of damage, where in the 5th round, Frankie Edgar knocked out Gray Maynard to retain his UFC lightweight title. Both of the fights with Frankie Edgar would have a massive impact on Gray Maynard's fighting career from this point onwards. He would go on to defeat Clay Guida by a split decision at UFC on FX4 and would next get finished by TJ Grant, Nate Diaz, Ross Pearson, and would lose a decision to Alexander Yakovlev at UFC Fight Night 63. After suffering 4 losses in a row, he would make his way down to the featherweight division, where he is currently 2-1 in the weight class. It looks like those wars with Frankie Edgar has done more damage to Gray Maynard's career than anyone expected, but hopefully he is able to continue winning his upcoming fights. Number 4. Junior Dos Santos became the UFC heavyweight champion after knocking out Cain Velasquez at UFC on Fox 1. He would next successfully defend his heavyweight title against Frank Mir at UFC 146 and face Cain Velasquez again at UFC 155, where in the fight, Cain Velasquez absolutely put a beating on him from the first round to the last round to win the fight by unanimous decision. JDS would next defeat Mark Hunt at UFC 160 and would face Cain Velasquez for the 3rd time at UFC 166, where in the fight, Cain Velasquez battered JDS again, where he was finished by TKO in the 5th round. The damage done by Cain Velasquez would show JDS's future fights. He would next make his comeback against Stipe Miocic at UFC on Fox 13, where he would go through another 5-round war where the unanimous decision was given to Junior Dos Santos. He would next lose to Alistair Overeem at UFC on Fox 17 and pick up a win at UFC Fight Night 86, where he would go on to rematch Stipe Miocic for the UFC heavyweight title at UFC 211, where he would lose the fight by TKO in the 1st round. It looks like his ability to take a punch has severely been damaged, where the 5-round wars with Cain Velasquez and Stipe Miocic are starting to show their effects. Hopefully, he is able to make a successful comeback and get back to his winning ways. Number 3. Back in 2015, Ronda Rousey was the only reigning UFC Women's Bantamweight champion who was just crushing all the contenders. With an undefeated record and a dominant fighting style, Ronda Rousey looked unbeatable, where it seemed like she would hold on to the belt for a very long time. She was next scheduled to face Holly Holm at UFC 193, where in the fight, Holly Holm exposed her weakness in her striking skills, picking her apart from round to round. Holly Holm head-kicked Ronda Rousey unconscious to become the new UFC Bantamweight champion of the world. Ronda Rousey took a year off and came back to challenge new champion Amanda Nunes at UFC 207, where in the fight, we saw her confidence was no more, where she came back trying to strike with heavy hitter Amanda Nunes, which led her to getting smashed up in just 34 seconds of the 1st round. I believe the knockout loss to Holly Holm severely affected Ronda Rousey's confidence, as she didn't seem like the same fighter she once was. As of right now, it is unclear whether or not she will be making a return to the UFC. Number 2. Back in 2006, Chuck Liddell was a reigning UFC light heavyweight champion who was just knocking out fighters with his signature overhand right. He was the most feared man in the light heavyweight division, where many fighters were intimidated by his power before the fight happened. He was next scheduled to face Quinton Rampage Jackson at UFC 71, where he would lose by TKO in the 1st round, losing his title. He would next lose a split decision to Keith Jardine at UFC 76 and bounce back, defeating Wanderlei Silva at UFC 79. With this victory, it finally looked like Chuck Liddell was back to his normal self, but that wasn't the case. He would suffer a string of knockout losses to Rashad Evans, Mauricio Hua, and Rich Franklin. I believe both of his losses to Rampage Jackson and Rashad Evans played a big part in his quick decline, where he had completely lost the ability to take a punch. After the 3 consecutive losses, he announced his retirement from the sport. Number 1. Back in 2014, Renan Barão was the reigning UFC Bantamweight champion who was blitzing fighters with his aggressive fighting style. He held a mixed martial arts record of 32 wins, 1 losses and no contest, and was a very intimidating force in the division. The way he would win his fights was truly amazing, where it was very difficult to see him lose his title. He was scheduled to face TJ Dillashaw at UFC 173, where he would get brutally beat down, eventually getting finished by TKO in the 5th round, losing his title. He next defeated Mitch Gagnon and faced TJ Dillashaw again at UFC on Fox 16, where he would get beaten down again, losing the fight by TKO in the 3rd round. He would next move up to the featherweight division, where he would lose to Jeremy Stevens at UFC Fight Night 88 and picked up a win over Philip Nova at UFC Fight Night 95. He last lost to Aljamain Sterling by a unanimous decision at UFC 214. I believe his first loss to TJ Dillashaw triggered a decline in his career, as TJ broke his aura of invincibility as well as breaking his confidence. In his recent fights, he doesn't seem like the same fighter he once was, and hopefully he is able to return back to his old form in the future.